Someone gave me this poem and asked me to read it. It's a poem of my own, so naturally I agreed. So it's called Things to Think. Think in ways you've never thought before. If the phone rings, think of it as carrying a message larger than anything you've ever heard, vaster than 100 lines of Yeats. Think that someone may bring a bear to your door, maybe wounded or deranged. Or think that a moose has risen out of the lake, and he is carrying on his antlers a child of your own whom you've never seen. When someone knocks at the door, think that he's about to give you something large, tell you that you're forgiven, or that it's not necessary to work all the time, or that it's been decided that if you lie down, no one will die. So this is this workaholic thing, you know, and there was a feeling that I've always had trying to get over that if I don't do something, you know, someone will die, someone in my family will die, something like that. I have to keep working. When someone knocks at the door, think that he's about to give you something large, tell you you're forgiven, or that it's not necessary to work all the time, or that it's been decided that if you lie down, no one will die. So this feeling of forgiven, being forgiven, that doesn't come from this dragon. That has to come from the human side, is that right? Yes?
I think so.
Good. But one of the things that came to me was that the grandiosity, not thinking of it as a dragon, I guess, but this is a big, powerful, huge force, has a twin. And that twin is the feeling of utter worthlessness. And I've always been confused about that. My father was a farmer and a good farmer, and so there was a certain amount of dignity in the family, which I remembered from an early time, and I was my mother's favorite, and therefore I had that kind of grandiosity from that, you understand me? So I got some from my father, some from my mother. But then when I was about 11 or 12 or something, we'd go to a nearby town in order to buy a suit for me or something. We'd go into a clothing store, and I would see myself in the mirror. And I would suddenly fall, 15,000 feet. And who is that miserable-looking kid? Is that me? That's not the way I felt inside. You understand me? And then I'd feel utterly worthless just from looking in the mirror. So I avoided mirrors. But mirrors in clothing stores, I still hate them. I get in them, I get in a rage. Well, anyway. So this little twin of utter worthlessness, I've never been able to connect him really to much, except my physical appearance. But that's what I wanted to talk to you about. And I feel him down here. He's just down here. And I've always been in an argument with a woman. I'll enter Grandiose, and in a little while, I look down and now all my energy disappears. I don't have any humor anymore. I start to sink, and I can't talk well when that one is with me. Is that right? And then the woman is not satisfying for the woman. She hoped that she'd be in an argument with a human being. Because she's got a lot of shit she wants to lay out. And, if I flail my arms or shout or something, it's better, more satisfying. At least she's getting to me. But if there's nobody there, if I've disappeared into this little guy down there to my right, Well, what do I do then? Anyway, that's a situation that I've experienced many times. And so lately, I have been thinking of this little one here. Have any of you had this experience? Tell me.
About the experience?
Yeah.
Same experience. To me, it's an experience of almost disappearing. The smallness of it is though yourself is going away, becomes non-existent, so you have neither arms nor legs nor voice or anything. And in that state, the only way out of it is either rage, or if you explode into rage, of course you got yourself back, or you just take yourself away and relate to that and stay with that non-existent feeling and sort of have a relationship and coax that being back into reality and give it what it needs, because it won't get it there in the conversation.
No. Anyone else want to have this experience? Yes, please.
Well, there's this one, there's this one woman in my life, and what happens to me is when I get into conflict or some kind of communication where we're kind of head to head looking at each other, and I see the grandiosity in her, and it scares me, and from there I either go to a place where I'm so inflated and talking about things that don't have an actual emotional connection to me, and I become this huge one, and it doesn't feel good at all, and I can't escape it, and I just keep talking, and I put my hands on my hips, or I just lose it, my hands hang low, and I just feel this wanting to not say anything because I don't want to upset her, but then it feels horrible, and I just kind of stew and brew.
Yeah. Thank you. Yes.
Well, it happens to me with women and men, and when that happens, I lose all my capacities. And part of what that means is that I can't play, but I also can't do the work. I mean, going into a situation like that with someone is work. It's effort. And it's a way out. It's like, because the feeling that comes right before it is like, oh God, do I really have to go do this? And then it just, everything goes away. And then I'm absolved of the responsibility because I can't. It's all my capacities are gone. The intelligence and the eloquence and everything just goes away. And I just sort of become, and then the person loses interest and goes away. But I've saved myself from having to like put out the energy and go through all that.
Sometimes I would find myself, I would sleep, and then in the middle of the night I'd wake up and I'd have this terrific burning sensation in my chest of total depression. I mean depression minus 200. And it would be so strong that I could feel like a physical presence in my chest. Yes, please.
Because when it happens to me, it happens only when I'm close to someone. If I'm not close to someone, I can maintain. But if I'm close to someone, it's that, oh fuck, I messed up again. That's one part. The other part is it keeps that rage in me from resurfacing and really destroying what I have. It's better to keep what I have where it is, knowing that I go down into myself. And then I listen, and it's my wife, she says, you damn Norwegian. And then that's the end.
Take it as a compliment, yeah. Thank you for that. Who else said that? Yes, please. Tim.
It's a little twist on this. Last August, I was at a family reunion. I was arguing with my two uncles and my dad, and it was, man to man. It was great. It felt good to be arguing with them, and they were respecting me. I was respecting them. And my aunt was standing right next to us, listening. And finally, she says, "Oh, Timmy." And I just went all the way down, and I could no longer even argue with my father and my uncle like I had been doing. She just dropped me so far down, and it took about a half hour for me to recover from that.
Yeah. So, I would like to continue with this, but we have a lot of things to do, and so I just want to say one little thing has changed, because I was never able to associate that little guy there with anything. and he ended up extremely abandoned and deserted. Is that right? And he hardly belonged in the family. But this work on grandiosity has helped me understand the positive side of grandiosity is that I have this one over on my left side who is a grandiose person, and he has some justification for that, and I worked a lot to make sure that happens. And so now the last few times that happens and that little guy goes down, then I come over to this side, and I use some energy from that side, and I say to him, you know, basically, I'm a lighthearted person. And anything that he's spoken, if you can speak to him from that side, then sometimes he's released. And that can happen in a fraction of a second. I can continue the argument then. Wow. I say, yeah, what the hell? I mean, basically, we got a lot of lightheartedness. He says, we do? I say, yeah. It's something in which he's not alone anymore, in which, partly because of this wonderful man's work on grandiosity, I can see how there's an exchange possible between these two. Is that right?
Sure.
You want to say something about that?
I just think you're just describing. You're better able to claim that golden energy and fuel it over to this part that's depleted, and that's kind of connecting the flow. That's reconnecting the circuits there a little bit, because there's been a kind of a split in the psyche, and you just when you push a little of that energy back over here, it reconnects things, reintegrates you. You can think about these depleting experiences. The way they're talked about is as fragmentation states in analysis. They talk about fragmentation anxiety. When you're going there, you're fragmenting your self system, your little S self system is fragmenting, and what's got to happen is it's got to be brought back into some sort of cohesion, and giving it an injection, giving this part, the split off part, an injection of what they call it is the narcissistic libido. You know, give it a shot of your grandiose energies.
I hate the word narcissistic libido.
I know, I do too.
But it's.
But it does have. I mean, it is a very specific kind of energy. It's very golden and rich, and it's got the juice. Just think about it as juice. You know, give a little injection of juice.
Yeah. That's lovely. What did you say, Danny?
Well, for me, it's a feeling of self-loathing that comes, you know, and for the most part, it feels like when it comes, it's come from the perception of someone else.
Yeah, the woman in the clothing store who's.
Yeah, or I'll tell you a story. I went to the unemployment office years and years ago, and I had a friend who was about 6'4", big black man, and I didn't have a power chair, and he pushed me in there, and got to the head of the line, and the counter, of course, is way up there, and there's a lady behind the counter, and she has a lot of false grandiosity, and she really likes having it. She's really enjoying the power that she wields from the throne that she sits on up there. And so she speaks to the man behind me and says, he needs to go that line over there. And I said, excuse me, I'm the one in line. I'm down here. Please address me. She refused to look at me. And she said again, he needs to go to that line over there. She never did look at me.
Wow.
I stayed with it. I don't know how long I kept trying to get her to look at me. I'd learned a few things along the way. I wouldn't have done that years before, but I really wanted her to look at me, and she never did. And then that hag stayed with me for years. You know, and that was a 5-minute thing. But I couldn't shake her, right? And so, you know, there's things like that happen, and they build up, they get stored somehow, and then somebody says one word, and all that stuff comes back.
Yeah.
And I'm nothing.
Thank you. As you get older, you learn more and more to work with this to some extent. Am I right? So there's something I'm working with the guzzle form now, which comes out of the Iranian culture. And the interesting thing is, at the end of the guzzle form, one of the requirements you don't have to do is you refer to yourself. And that's why they take a name like Hafez, which means someone who's memorized the entire Quran, or Rumi, which means someone from central Turkey. Anyway, Rumi is from Rum, which was Turkey. So I use the word Robert. It's the best I can do. And it's very shocking to me to put my own name in. But the other day I wrote a poem and it had 5 stanzas in it, and there had a lot of bright things in that thing. And those 5 stanzas, and I come down to the last one, and then it says, well, there's a lot of things you can say and other things you can say, or something like that. And then it just says, Robert, this poem is probably the best that anyone could do who is still living in the old mill of desire. Well, that was interesting, because by using that, you're able to comment on your own work.
Yeah.
I still don't understand it, but it seems very interesting to me that someone in me has higher standards in this stuff than I do.